This video will show you how to replace the water pump on a Mitsubishi Lancer. This will be located along the passenger side of your engine compartment. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. We're going to have to drain the engine coolant, so of course the engine and all related components need to be cooled to the touch. Now after that, we're going to make our way over to our coolant cap right along here. We're going to be turning this counterclockwise so we can remove it. Just a quick inspection and we'll set it aside. And now we can start draining the coolant, so we'll make our way safely under the vehicle. We're underneath the passenger side front corner of the vehicle, and this is where we can see our forward splash shield. Looking just up in this area, we can see the lower mount of our radiator. That's this small tab right along here, and this is the radiator mount. Now where that small tab is, there's actually a port that goes up into the coolant channel of the radiator. If you were looking up along this rectangular port on the splash shield, you could see that the drain plug is tucked right up inside this area. You could try to reach up in here and loosen it this way. It's kind of a tight area. If you find you have an issue, just carefully remove your 3 pieces of hardware making its way across this area so we can pull it down enough to make our way up and inside. For these, I'm using an 8mm. It looks like they've been replaced, but typically they're a 10mm mounting tool. We've got some room there. Now I've got those 3 bolts out. You can tell there is a little bit of room here. If you just pop one of these push clips out, it's going to give you just a tiny bit more, which is going to help you get your hand inside that area. For that, I'm just using a trim tool. We're carefully starting to remove the center to unlock it. Then you can dislodge it, and now we can make our way right up in here. We do have our collection receptacle under here, so we can collect and recycle all of our fluid. Now we can see we do have the coolant making its way into the collection receptacle. We'll let this continue draining, and we'll continue on. Now we're back under the hood. We're looking for the belt and our tensioner. To gain access, let's remove our coolant overflow. As far as removing this overflow tank, we want to start with the overflow hose leading to it. Typically, the clamp can be squeezed by hand. You can also use pliers if necessary. Just go ahead and gently squeeze that. We'll lift it up and out of place, and then we can also remove the hose. That should slide out of place as well. A gentle squeeze, confirming it's not damaged in any way. Now we're moving along to the hardware. We'll be using a 12mm for our one mounting bolt here. Take hold of your overflow and lift it up and out of position. Be aware of the coolant located inside as you set this aside. Now we can see our serpentine belt clearly. It makes its way over some pulleys and under others. We want to pay attention to the orientation and the routing of it. Just take quick note. Continuing on, we're looking for the tensioner. Now as far as the tensioner is concerned, we can see the idler pulley right up along this area, just underneath our power steering pump pulley. As we continue down and diagonally rearward, you can see our tensioner pulley right along this area. We're going to be using a serpentine belt removal tool. You can use either a 16mm or a 5/8. We're going to be turning this counterclockwise to release tension from the belt, and we can slide the belt off of our idler pulley right along here. Just be aware of any pinch points. Can remove our tool. Now as far as removing the water pump, it's just on the other side of this engine mount. It's fairly difficult to reach from up here. Safely raise and support and remove the passenger side front wheel next. We're going to remove all 5 of our 21mm lug nuts and get the wheel off of here. Now that we have the wheel off, we have a clear view of our passenger side lower engine splash shield right along this area here. There is some hardware up along the top, but let's start down along the bottom. I'm going to start right along the back corner here. We're going to be removing push clips. Typically 4 push clips. It's going to start with the center. You can either push it in or carefully pull it out depending on the push clip itself. Once you've done that, it should be in the unlocked position and you can start removing it. That one's a push in. That out of there. Just going to reset that. This one looks like it's ready to come out. Let's get this one over here next. Get that one out of there. We finished with the lower hardware. Now we're up along the top of this panel. We're making our way across. We have 3 more push clips that need to be removed. If your push clip comes apart, you should be able to just gently press it together, but leave it in the unlocked position for installation. Moving along. Our next push clip here. And now we have our last push clip. This one's pressed into our inside fender liner. I'm just going to separate this area. Now at this point, we should be able to remove our engine splash shield. Just go ahead and give it a wiggle and we'll pull it out of place. Now that we have the shield out of the way, we can see our water pump pulley. I like to make sure that my belt is free and clear from this area, so when coolant comes out, it's not going to get on the belt and potentially cause any damage. So I'm just going to go ahead and push this up and out of my way. Obviously, you can tuck that aside or fully remove it, whatever's easiest for you. Now that we have the belt off of there, we have a clear view of our water pump pulley and our mounting bolts. We're going to be using a 10mm to loosen these. You may find you have a hard time loosening them. This is going to want to spin on you. To help prevent this from spinning, if you have a rubber band wrench, you could use that around this, or you could carefully use a pry bar or even a screwdriver directly across 2 of the heads of your mounting bolts and loosen the 3rd. Once you have it loose but not removed, continue on to all others. Now I do have my rubber band wrench here, so I'm just going to take that and we'll slide it over the pulley, preventing it from spinning on me while I continue on loosening my mounting bolts. Okay, that one's loose. That one's loose. This one's loose as well. Now that I have all of those loose, I'm going to fully remove them. For this, I'm just going to switch to a ratcheting wrench. There's one mounting bolt. All right, there's our last one. Now that we have all the hardware out of there, we can start removing that pulley. If it's stuck in place, gently pry using a pry bar if necessary. There we are. There's that pulley. That looks good. Definitely reusable. We'll clean it up and set it aside. Continuing on, we have our 5 12mm headed mounting bolts making their way all the way around this water pump. Keep in mind, fluid may come out of this area. We have our collection receptacle under here so we can collect and recycle that fluid as needed. Now we're on to our last mounting bolt. This is the last thing holding our water pump in place. Now for this last mounting bolt, I'm going to start it back in a couple threads so we can start removing the water pump and we don't have to worry about it falling out and potentially hurting us. Continuing on, we're going to break this free from its mounting point. For this, I'm going to be using a pry bar up inside this area. I'm also going to tap on the far end with a hammer. We want to try to break it free. We want to make sure we collect and recycle all fluid properly. Okay, so we've got it broken free now. Let's get this bar out of here. Just give this a wiggle here. There we are. We have our gasket and our water pump. Let's go ahead and start removing those. There it is, friend. Prior to installation of any brand new part, of course, we're going to make sure we clean and inspect our mounting surface. For this, I'm not trying to use any type of detergent which might make its way into the cooling system and potentially cause any damage. A clean rag should do. Give it a quick wipe. If you see any of the original gasket on here or any raised areas, make sure you clean it off. You can do that using a flat blade razor if necessary. Okay, friend, it's time for installation of the brand new water pump and, of course, the brand new gasket. As far as the gasket on the water pump, you want to make sure it's properly aligned. We don't want it like this, where of course it's not going to seal in any way. Once you do have it aligned in the proper orientation, we're going to continue on with applying this onto the water pump housing. Carefully start getting this gasket on there. Press that on. Now, prior to installing any of our mounting bolts, let's just double check to make sure we cannot see any of our gaskets sticking out in any areas. If you do see gaskets sticking out, it's not seated properly. Let's start in all the hardware here. They're all started in. I'm just going to go ahead and bottom them out. Now we're going to torque these mounting bolts to 16 foot-pounds. It equates to 182 inch-pounds. There's one. Do the same to all others. Before we go any further with our installation, let's just go ahead and clean up this area from any coolant residue. Of course, we'll also wipe down our skid shields as necessary. Now we're preparing to install that pulley. When we go to install it, we need to align the mounting bolt ports. We'll start in each of our mounting bolts before tightening any of them. Now that I have them all started in, I'm going to bottom them out. Make sure they're snug. The torque for these is 80 inch-pounds if you can get a torque wrench in. Otherwise, just make sure they're tight. To help prevent this from spinning on me, I'm just going to continue on with my band wrench. Okay, right there is bottomed out. Minimal room for a torque wrench, so I'm just going to make sure it's tight. We'll do the same for all others. Bottomed out, nice and tight. That last one's tight as well. Make sure it's seated properly. Now it's time to start situating our serpentine belt. This is going to be done partially from down here and also from up top. So now we're up along the top. We have our last two pulleys here. I'm carefully using my serpentine belt tool. We're pivoting that tensioner counterclockwise. That releases tension. We can slide this over that. Okay. Now we can remove our tool. Before we go any further, we need to check the belt routing And make sure it's seated properly on each and every one of the pulleys, especially the pulleys that have the ribs. If it's off by even one tooth on that ribbed area, it can cause damage to the belt or something else. Now we can reinstall our coolant overflow. Looking at this, we can tell that we have one locating tab. It has a small rubber grommet. Looking down at the body of the vehicle, you can see the port where that needs to align. We'll bring this down into position here. We're aligning it with the body. Now we have the mounting bolt port up along this upper corner here. Start that in and snug it up. Now it's time for the overflow hose. Just going to take this, we'll slide it right onto the overflow as far as possible. Clamp it down. If your clamp is weak or damaged and it needs to be replaced, you can also use a wire tie. We need to make sure this hose is properly secured. Now it's time to install our passenger side lower engine splash shield. Now as we bring this into position, we're paying attention up along the top first. On the rearward corner, you're going to find that you have this small area. The notch goes on the inboard side. Just gently flex it over there. We'll continue on by pressing this up so we can gain access to our 2 mounting points up along the top here. Just gently flex all other shields as necessary. We'll continue bringing this over. Now we need to flex this portion up and above our other shields. It sits up along the top. Swing this over. Make sure it's still aligned. Goes behind there. Right up here. We'll install these push clips up along the top area. Now moving just forward and down from there, we have another area for a push clip. We'll drive that in as well. Now we're done in the wheel well as far as this panel is concerned, so we're making our way underneath. This is where we have several more areas for push clips. We'll align the push pins with their corresponding ports, lock them in. If you needed to, typically you can reach up through the panel. There. Now that this has finished draining into our collection receptacle, let's go ahead and close that drain plug. There we are. Make sure it's nice and tight. You don't want to leak from this area. We'll clean up any mess and reinstall our shield across the front. Now we'll reinstall our push pin in the corner here. It's a nice tight fit, and continue on to our mounting bolts. Double check to make sure that's secured in place. Now let's get ready to install our front wheel. We'll get it in position, start on all 5 of our 21mm lug nuts, we'll bottom them out. After that, we'll get the wheel back on the ground and we're going to torque each of these lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. We've got the wheel back on the ground. We're going to be torquing each of these lug nuts in a crisscross manner to that 80 foot-pounds. Torqued. Now it's time to fill the cooling system. You can either use a specialty tool or you can use a funnel that looks like this. We're going to be using the manufacturer's specified coolant. Now once we do start the vehicle, we're going to turn it right back off after approximately 5 seconds so we can triple check our belt, confirming it's seated properly so we don't cause any damage. Assuming it is, go ahead and start the vehicle and let it run. We want to try to remove any air from inside the cooling system. Now I just turned off the vehicle. I ran it until the cooling fans turn on. At that point, the engine should be at normal operating temperature, the thermostat opened, and the coolant can circulate throughout the entire system, removing any air. Now I can remove my funnel. We'll make sure we reinstall our coolant cap, turning it clockwise until it's completely locked down. Okay, friend, we finished the installation of our vehicle's water pump. The next thing we have to do is make sure we clean any messes, double check for leaks, and then we're going to take the vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.